Hello, Angelo Shelley. I'm going to talk about Akave. I'm going to keep it very brief because I want to dive into the tech right away. So I'm going to talk about around the interfaces and specifically on how we do our data structure. So we'll get that going right away. As you can see on the screen right now, I'm going to look at it from a zoning perspective on what we do today, so how our hot storage layer works and how you can access it, so I can dive directly into the docs and explain how you use that today and how you can build on Akave. So when you look at from the top to the bottom on the left, you see that we have our SDK and our CLI ready to interact with our with our storage layer. And you will be talking to one of our zones that we set up for the hackathon. So it's a public open zone. Keep that in mind when you're talking to it. Data is not encrypted, so make sure that, or you encrypt it yourself, or you're storing data that can be accessed publicly. Now, we do permissioning based on the blockchain itself, so based on your wallet address that will be segregated. You'll see that in a little bit when I go through the documentation. Then on specifically on how you interact, we'll go into the docs and get that going. Let me see here. So these are the documentation of Akave. It's on docs.akave.ai. We have multiple ways of interacting with our storage system. So as you can see here, like our SDK CLI will give you optionality for the fully blockchain integrated use of Akave. We have our streaming API and our normal API. Mainly focused would be on the blockchain integrated one, which would give you all the functionality that you would be needed for this hackathon challenge. So here on the blockchain integrated one, let me quickly go over it, how you install it and use it. I'll talk about the SDK CLI on how that works and what your need is to make it work, and then we'll go into the JS wrapper and then explain how you can programmably use Akave. So right now, what you need is basically just Go, at least version 122, which you can install. We added a really easy to use Mac OS example and a Ubuntu OS example, which is very step by step, very easy to go. Don't forget to always add your path here, because that will give you some issues later. And then it's really easy. Our GitHub repo is publicly, so you can download it right from there and quickly build it. Takes around 30 seconds to 1 minute to build, depending on your internet connection. So that should be fairly quick. One thing is important here is that if you want to have it readily available throughout your entire operating system, move it to a location where it can be executed by every user. Goes for Ubuntu, Mac OS, or other operating systems. And then you're basically ready to go, right? So what you need to do here is make sure that you go to our faucet where you can claim some tokens. Very easy. What you do here is, this is not my computer, but I'll show you. Let's see. Oh. There we go. So what you do is you add Akave to MetaMask. It's all already pre-configured and pre-filled in, so you can just quickly add it to your MetaMask. Always a little disclaimer, make sure to make a new wallet address, because else it will be tied to your other EVM compatible accounts, which you don't want. And then you can claim 10 Akave right away from our test network, and you can get started. Now, once you claim those tokens and you have your own wallet address on chain, you will need your private key that you need to export out of your MetaMask, and then you can get started on using that on our infrastructure. Now, on the blockchain side, and this is also very important, let me open that. To give you some information around, let me check here. Let me open this data flow for a second. As you can see here, this is the data flow on the Akave site, where you can see that data that comes in through any of our easy-to-use interfaces, it will get broken down into chunks And then what we basically do is we calculate like a Merkle tree hash out of that and derive the root CID, so you can access it that way directly. And all that information gets stored on our infrastructure on the blockchain. Now, the reason why I bring this up is that all this interaction from storing data to the chunking to uploading, accessing, creating a bucket, all that information gets stored on chain. So when you, like from the second you start interacting with our network, you will see when you fill in your wallet address here, you will definitely see all those interactions like happen on this level when we get into like the blockchain commands to interact with our network. Around here, very important, keep in mind, if you want to connect on our network, this is what you need. This is the, oh, it's not working, oh, here we go. The connect.akave.ai, make sure to use port 5500. You will see here when you're working on using our CLI, you'll see that all these commands, we call them IPC commands, are used at the end here to use the private key. Let me see if I can show that here. Here we go. That you need to import your private key. Now, if you don't want to see that every time in your execution of your commands, you can go down here and you see like we put in an approach to secure a private key. So you store it once, you cache it, and then you can just use it in your command like as a cached variable and then use it that way. And then basically it's very simple moving forward. It's like simple on like creating a bucket, which is a virtual representation of your data, where you can then like view and list all the different buckets that you created, which you can segregate data in if you want to. If you want to segregate it by user, you'll have to create multiple wallet addresses, and then per wallet address you create multiple buckets. And then when you go further, it's the same as basically any object store or any storage system is, where you can interact with files, you can upload, download, and then list them, get some file info going. So this is our basic approach to our CLI. And the reason why I explain this, so you have some context in the part where I'm going to go in next, which is the part that most people or most builders use to deploy anything on Akave. So here we call it Akave link, really easy to use. The repo is open. The only thing you need is Docker. What you do basically is you spin up a small Docker container. What it does is you import your private key. It spins up an API that then talks to the SDK that will talk to the decentralized Akave network. And it's as easy as pulling the Docker image. The same way you go to the faucet where you get your tokens, and then export your private key. You put in your private key here once in the Docker container, and you spin it up based on the IP address you put in here. The same here for like connecting to the node. Same information you need here. And once that's done, you can basically interact with it within any code that you're used to. We put in some examples here to get like some information around what's happening, and we put like the equivalence of like a curl command, so you can see how easy it is to interact. So if you want to use Java, which a lot of people use to interact with it, you can talk to the API and get that information going. It's the same around listing buckets, creating a bucket, viewing the details, and also on the file operations, very simple approach as well here, where you can go through on uploading and fetching data. And here are some examples on how to get the data back, download the files, and interact with it. Now, I think the main one where you want to see on the blockchain side is then once you have all this done, you can go into our Explorer. Let me see if there was anybody working on it right now. Let's see. Right now people are taking some funds out of the faucet, so nothing to show yet. But definitely once you look at like what's happening there on your specific wallet address and you interacted with it, you'll see all the different operations opening up there. And that was my demo on Akave. Now, I don't know how to proceed, but can we take questions, or is there anybody who has some questions? Oh, it's a silent. Yeah, people can ask me questions if they want to, but I don't have any. Let me see. Yeah, mostly covered the ones that are needed. Just make sure that you keep in mind that connecting to the network is connected at Akave.ai on port 5500. And when you spin up the Docker image, if you want to make the API publicly available to others to interact with your application that you're building or downloading software, make sure to host it somewhere publicly so people can access it, because if you run it on your notebook alone, that would be impossible to do from that perspective. Okay. I can take some questions if there are any, and besides that, that concludes the workshop for me. Thank you very much.